You wanna get it? You got it first? Let's go, Lou. Come on, Lou.
Let me get it. Ooh, I used to dream.
Wait for it to drop first.
I used to dream about this house that stood on a hill. Now this house would be mine if I followed my scheme. So I do what's best at their request. They gave me an 8, that means I passed the test. Cause I'll practice and get my wording correct. Cause when I have a crowd wizard, I just sleep like Jack.
So, I work in the barbershop, and I'm the youngest, and I'm in here with grown men, and they're all chasing wealth, but haven't got it yet. And I'm starting to think that they don't know how to build assets.
My life shows the game full of blood. Sometimes I felt to myself, got on my knees and felt soft. Stood up and got a job, still no pay no bills, dog. I had to get up on the court and pass the pills off. So I turned the dope, selling cool. And now I'm smoking on this weed, man, got to go. And niggas talk about the game and how they did it right. And what they did is wrong, and now they want to change and do it right. I'm one of them. Son of God, son of men. But what I for the gun shit, best believe. Come on! When I take it out, my arms to show the muscle sleeve. And what I told you to your people, say, well, how I creep. I've been up on them back streets with that black heat. I left niggas cold, dog face on their feet. And they ain't really staying strong, I really face defeat. I man up to everything, man, this is me. They call me shiz and I'm coming from the family tree. Born soldiers, military, mostly G's. But y'all talking about the shit, how you hold your keys. But now my keep minds and raised up and still the beat.
They got the studio in this joint.
Let me tell them about when I was young, and I'm gonna shut up.
I feel like they don't know how because they haven't had like the right expertise on how to build the assets, and they probably weren't guided the right way, and like they probably don't really try to figure out how to do it. Like they just stuck in their way for so long that that's just what they're used to, and they became like they just wanted to stay the way that they are. So
Sound like they stagnant.
yeah, and they're stagnant.
I say we, because I'm in here too.
Yeah.
You know?
So how do you feel about acquiring material versus like building assets?
That's important. That's something that a distinction that really needs to be made. A lot of people don't know the difference. I mean, me, for most of my life, I was one of them people that didn't know the difference. A lot of the people around us now, people we see every day, don't know the difference. You see us, we running out here, we hustling to do this, we getting money to do that, we buying the sneaks, we buying the cars, we buying the jewelry, we buying all this stuff so that we can look good, and we actually walk out here. When we get those things, we walk around and we actually think that we're doing great and that we're doing good because we got a closet full of all the latest sneakers. We might have a nice car sitting outside. We might have all the jewelry. But when you go check that bank account, or you go do I'm trying to remember what you call it, when you check your assets to see what you actually have, you find out that all you got is them sneaks, nice rings, maybe a nice car. That's all you got. That's for now. See, from my experience now, you know, growing and being out here in the world trying to make it, that stuff really gets you nowhere. because you can't retire off a closet full of sneakers. That keeps you, it keeps you working and hustling from this moment to this moment to this moment. Same thing as living from check to check. You know what that means?
Yeah.
You understand that? That's what a lot of us do. We live from check to check. Because we've never learned about the difference between, what was it, assets and wealth?
No, it was acquiring material versus building assets.
Okay. We never learned the difference between building assets and just simply acquiring materials. But it's not an accident. It's not an accidental thing. It's not an accidental thing. We were. It's things that we were taught. The things we are taught are things that keep us in this same position that we are in now.
So why do you think that it's not like accidental?
It's not, because look at it from a corporate, or I want to say a corporate standpoint. You have this magnificent store. You have all these magnificent items in the store. You can't do nothing with them items if you don't have consumers, if you don't have people that buy. So you look at our commercials, you look at all our things. All our commercials are geared towards making you feel as though you need that item. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they use us to do it. You look at our sneakers. Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and all this stuff. And you think about this. That Michael Jordan sneaker that they make might not cost no more than make than a regular old pair of sneaks you find in Marshalls or some store like that. But just because that name is on it, it's Michael Jordan. You gotta have it. And every commercial they make is geared to play on your mind. They show Michael Jordan flying through the sky, just boom, dunking. LeBron scoring 40, blocking a shot. So they make you actually feel that if you have them sneakers on, that you're close to it. But it's all a play on your mind. But it's nothing new. It's a play that advertising and marketing been using those tricks since long before me and you were even walking this planet. But what we don't look at and what we don't realize and don't understand is the impact that it really has on us. Because it keeps us from building wealth. Because we're throwing our money away. Yeah. Throwing it away. You look at, and I think me and you might have had little conversations about this before. You look at how we're taught, what we're taught about credit. We're not taught to use our credit to build wealth. We're taught to use our credit to stay in debt. Now that's a whole nother story, we can get into that later, but just to explain what I mean is, from the time we're in high school, or maybe for some of us before, we're taught, oh, you gotta have good credit. You gotta keep your credit up so that when you have your credit, you can buy. Notice I said, buy the things that you need or that you want. And then we're taught that those things that we need and we want are cars. A house is not a bad investment, but that's almost.
It just depends on how you want to like do it.
Yeah.
Like if you want to keep it, run it out,
Yeah.
flip it.
Yeah. But we're not really taught to buy this house to flip it to buy more properties. We're taught to buy this house, we're gonna get a 30-year mortgage. We're gonna live in this house for the rest of our lives or forever. And we'll just be able to pay this house off. That's the way we're taught about it. So we haven't been taught how to build wealth, you know, as a people. And that's not just pointed at black folks. Now, yeah, that's had a big impact on us black folks. But there are other people that get caught up in that too. There are poor white folks out there that really don't know more than we know. Because yes, there are specifics that are aimed at us, you know, at black folks and black people. But there are other people that get caught up in that too. And they end up suffering from the same things we do because it's racial, but it's also a class of people. So you have this upper class that needs us to stay where we are. You got this upper class of people that needs us to stay right where we are. Because if you got a store, you ain't got no consumers, you can't sell nothing. You know? And this consumer, using the word consumer, is a more direct term, but it's broader than that. It's way bigger than that. That's just a part of it.
Right now.
So talk about my car, man. That's all I got, brother. That's all I got. You see, David, you asked the question. You asked if I believe that it was done on purpose. And I have to say yes, I do believe it's done on purpose, but it's a bigger picture that we gotta paint, that we gotta look at. Because there's levels to what was done to us. And when I say us, there's levels to that too. Because it's not just us as a people, as a race of people, but it's also us as a class of people too. And we gotta look at both levels. We gotta look at both of those things to understand what's going on with us. Were we taught these things in school as far as possessions and assets and the differences between them? I don't think we were taught those things to the extent or to the level we needed to be taught in order to understand how to exist and how to function in a society. But like I say, it's multiple reasons for that. And we gotta look at both of them. I would say that the best thing for us to do is to start out by looking at us as a country, class of citizens, and we can look at that initially before we look at the acute aspects of it. That's directly aimed at a race of people. And I say that because in some of these classrooms now, you know, even after slavery and all that existed, in some of these classrooms in these poor neighborhoods, we weren't the only people sitting in those classrooms. So some of the things that we were not taught were also not taught to other races of people too, including white people, you know. But there are reasons for that. So in short, yeah, I think it was intentional. In the long run, we have to look at the levels of those actions. And I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you.
Right through American history, there's been an ongoing clash between pressure for more freedom and democracy coming from below and efforts at elite control and domination coming from above. It goes back to the founding of the country. James Madison, the main framer, who was as much of a believer in democracy as anybody in the world that day, nevertheless felt that the United States system should be designed, and indeed, with his initiative was designed, so that power should be in the hands of the wealthy, because the wealthy are the more responsible set of men. And therefore the structure of the formal constitutional system placed most power in the hands of the Senate. Remember, the Senate was not elected in those days. It was selected from the wealthy. Men, as Madison put it, had sympathy for property owners and their rights. If you read the debates at the Constitutional Convention, Madison said the major concern of the society has to be to protect the minority of the opulent against the majority. And he had arguments. Suppose everyone had to vote freely. He said, well, the majority of the poor would get together and they would organize to take away the property of the rich. And he said that would obviously be unjust, so you can't have that. So therefore the constitutional system has to be set up to prevent democracy. I just have some interest that this debate has a hoary tradition. It goes back to the first major book on political systems, Aristotle's Politics. He says of all of them, the best is democracy. But then he points out exactly the flaw that Madison pointed out. If Athens were a democracy for free men, the poor would get together and take away the property of the rich. Well, same dilemma, they had opposite solutions. Aristotle proposed what we would nowadays call a welfare state. He said try to reduce inequality. So, same problem, opposite solutions. One is reduce inequality, you won't have this problem. The other is reduce democracy. If you look at the history of the United States, it's a constant struggle between these two tendencies. A democratizing tendency that's mostly coming from the population, pressure from below, and you get this constant battle going on, periods of regression, periods of progress. The 1960s, for example, were a period of significant democratization. Sectors of the population that were usually passive and apathetic became organized, active, started pressing their demands. And they became more and more involved in decision-making, activism, and so on. It just changed consciousness in a lot of ways. Minority rights.
If democracy means freedom, why are our people free? If democracy means justice, why don't we have justice? If democracy means equality, why don't we have equality?
Women's rights.
This inhuman system of exploitation will change, but only if we force it to change, and force it together.
In terms of the environment.
A unique day in American history is ending, a day
set aside for a nationwide outpouring of mankind seeking its own survival.
Opposition to aggression.
I say to those who criticize us for the militancy of our dissent that if they are serious about law and order, they should first provide it for the Vietnamese people, for our own black people, and for our own poor people.
Concern for other people.
One day we must ask the question, why are there 40 million poor people in America? When you begin to ask that question, you're raising a question about the economic system, about a broader distribution of wealth. The question of restructuring the whole of American society.
These are all civilizing effects. And that caused great fear.
You see what I mean? Now think about this, David. For your project, you were asked to prove your position, and your position was that you believed that these things were done on purpose. But if you think about it, how can you prove that this was done on purpose if you don't even have this knowledge of what we just watched? So I think for myself that yeah, it was done on purpose, but it took me, I'm 54 years old now. I didn't learn this stuff, what we just watched. I didn't learn that in school because we weren't taught that. But yet here it is. This is a man, Noam Chomsky, who's been around for years. I mean, generations, a couple of generations at least. So there are those who know of this guy, know of his teachings, and know of the things that he's teaching about. But we don't. So, yeah, I think this goes a step further towards proving your position. But there's more. If you noticed in this clip, he talked about, well, they mentioned not just black people, they mentioned women and black people also. And there are other, groups of people that are affected by this. But if you look at the big picture, you'll see that racism, I don't know the other term for it, but women's rights, things like that are just subcategories of the effect of this. So there's more. There's more.
Business press, say, 1920s, it talks about the need to direct people to the superficial things of life, like fashionable consumption, and that'll keep them out of our hair. You find this doctrine all through progressive intellectual thought, like Walter Lippmann, the major progressive intellectual of the 20th century. He wrote famous progressive essays on democracy, in which his view was exactly that. The public must be put in their place so that the responsible men can make decisions without interference from the bewildered herd. There to be spectators, not participants, then you get a properly functioning democracy. Straight back to Madison and on to Powell's memorandum and so on. And the advertising industry just exploded with this as its goal, fabricating consumers. And it's done with great sophistication.
You don't see many wild stallions anymore. He's one of the last of a wild and very singular breed. Come to Marlboro country.
The ideal is what you actually see today, where, let's let's say, teenage girls, if they have a free Saturday afternoon, will go walking in the shopping mall, not to the library or somewhere else. The idea is to try to control everyone, to turn the whole society into the perfect system. A perfect system would be a society based on a dyad, a pair. The pair is you and your television set, or maybe now you and the internet, in which that presents you with what the proper life would be, what kind of gadgets you should have, and you spend your time and effort gaining those things which you don't need and you don't want, and maybe you'll throw them away. But that's the measure of a decent life. What we see is in, say, advertising on television. If you've ever taken an economics course, you know that markets are supposed to be based on informed consumers making rational choices. Well, if we had a system like that, a market system, then a television ad would consist of, say, General Motors putting up information saying, here's what we have for sale. That's not what an ad for a car is. An ad for a car is a football hero, an actress, the car doing some crazy thing like going up a mountain or something. The point is to create uninformed consumers who will make irrational choices. That's what advertising is all about. And when the same institutions, PR system, runs elections, they do it the same way. They want to create an uninformed electorate which will make irrational choices, often against their own interests. And we see it every time one of these extravaganzas take place. Right after the election, President Obama won an award from the advertising industry for the best marketing campaign, and wasn't reported here. If you go to the international business press, executives were euphoric. They said, we've been selling candidates, marketing candidates like, toothpaste ever since Reagan. And this is the greatest achievement we have. I don't usually agree with Sarah Palin, but when she mocks when she calls the hopey changey stuff, she's right. First of all, Obama didn't really promise anything. That's mostly illusion. You go back to the campaign rhetoric and take a look at it. There's very little discussion of policy issues, and for very good reason, because public opinion on policy is sharply disconnected from what the two-party leadership and their financial backers want. Policy, more and more, is focused on the private interests that fund the campaigns, with the public being marginalized.
Wow. Yet another document. Verification of your position that it's intentional. We just watched. We just watched how the consumer mentality was created, and created for a specific purpose. So what I say now with David is you have to now tie this in to how we specifically as Black people were impacted and affected by this.
Yeah, the crazy thing that I can say like about this, like how this relates to me, is how, like, with all these ads and everything, like I would be down to like my last little bit of money, and like because of the ad would like influence me, I would go and get it, even though like not even thinking, like even though like that was my last little bit of money. I was buying all these things because like it seemed like I had to, and like after a while, like once I became aware, like I was just wasting money. I was buying all these things and I was still broke. I was like, man, I don't want that no more.
So you had a bunch of stuff that actually amounted to nothing.
It meant nothing. Like, I remember like when I used to play like basketball or football a lot, like when, like for instance, like LeBron or Kyrie, like when I would see a commercial for that same day or that same week, I'm going right to the store and I'm getting them. And I would probably, like when I went, I would get one color, the color I liked the most that day, and then probably a week or two later, I would get the second color I liked the next day, as soon as I would build the money right back. But I still was broke. But I had the nicest things. People thought that I had money, but I was still broke.
Now let me ask you something. You talking about what age? 15, 16?
Yeah, that's like 8th, 9th.
Now you in the barbershop with grown men. What do you see them doing?
I basically see them, they doing the same thing. Really, they doing the same thing. And I ain't gonna lie, like when I first started like cutting, like I was still kind of on that, but I wasn't like as heavy with it. Like when it was like as far as like barber related things, like when it was something that I felt like was different or was needed, like I wanted to go get it. So at the time, I was probably only making no more than $50 a day, but I was probably charging $5, $10, $7 to $10 on haircuts, and it would take me that whole day to make all that money, and then I would go get that new thing that was out, and it was pointless because, yeah, it would slightly by like 1% make the cut a little bit better, but really, I can cut the same with any clipper, and when I look back at it, I'm like, wow, like I spent all that money, but you know, like sometimes they say you gotta invest to be able to make money, but in some cases you can't be dumb while you're doing it. You know?
But think about it. They say you gotta invest to make money, which is true, but they can take that same principle, that same concept, and they have, and use it against you. Because then now the ones that they got you believing in this ideology of investing to make money, which is true. But then they can manipulate your mind through ads and through other stuff, and have you buying stuff that you really don't need. Like you just said, you can cut with any clipper.
Yeah.
You know, but these other clippers are special.
Yeah.
So imagine an entire population living like that. How do you build wealth like that?
I mean, if the whole population do the same thing, it's like that whole area, that whole zip code, town, just gonna stay broke. Like nobody's gonna build wealth at all. Like everybody's gonna be like stuck in a trance, stuck in a matrix, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I even could talk about how like last summer when the new cordless T outliners came out, they were $250. Now the quarter T outliners only cost me, like, cause I had a barber discount, it only would cost me like $50, and I could have brought a bunch of the same clipper for that $250. I could have brought way more, like 4 or 5 pairs of that same clipper just with a cord. And like I recently just gave them away because I didn't even see value in them because they weren't even as powerful and they couldn't cut through every type of hair. So I just was like, I don't need this. Like, so I just gave it away to somebody that did.
So I think that goes to your point. If it's advertising that's fooling us, that's not a mistake. They mean to fool us. So if they mean to fool us, they mean for us to spend our money on their stuff. If they mean for us to spend their money on their stuff, then you gotta mean for us never to build wealth.
And they have to get us to spend our money because that's how they make their money.
So how can we build wealth? So I think it goes back to your point.
Yeah,
It's intentional.
definitely intentional.
Just keep this in mind though. If they, and I think we can say they now, based on those letters, we'll call they the elites. If they can come up with ways to control an entire nation of people, control the government, control consumers, control voters of the entire country, what do you think that they can do with a particular race of people? Now that's where you gotta prove.
Because if you know the history of the whole concept of whiteness, if you know the history of the whole concept of the white race, where it came from and for what reason, you know that it was a trick and it's worked brilliantly. See, prior to the mid to late 1600s in the colonies of what would become the United States, there was no such thing as the white race. Those of us of European descent did not refer to ourselves by that term really ever before then. In fact, in the old countries of Europe, we had spent most of our time killing each other. We didn't love each other. We weren't one big happy family. The side of my family that comes from Scotland, hell, they didn't even worry about fighting people outside of Scotland. Highlanders and Lowlanders just fought the hell out of each other. So there was no white race, but in the colonies of what would become the United States, what did we see in the 1660s, 1670s? We began to see that Africans of indentured servant status, many of them not enslaved yet, they were not necessarily permanently enslaved. Some were, others were indentured like many poor Europeans for periods of 7 to 11 years. They could work off their indenture and then they would be free labor technically. Realized, as did the white indentured servants, the Europeans who hadn't even been called white yet, that they had a lot of things in common, like the fact that they were all getting their clock cleaned by the elite. And so they would get together more than our history books taught us, to foment rebellion against the elite, to try to get a better deal for themselves on the basis of economic necessity and economic justice. And what did the elite do? When you see that you're outnumbered by black and white folks who are penniless, landless, peasants, you have to do one of two things. You either have to kill them all, but you can't do that because who's going to work? Rich folks weren't going to. They had to get poor people to work. The whole point was to be a person of leisure back in those days. That was the goal, was not to work. So you couldn't kill them all. You didn't want to kill them all. You had to do the work yourself, not to build your own levee, build your own house. No, pick your own tobacco, harvest your own cotton. No, we're not going to do any of that. So you can't kill them, but you can co-opt them. And so the elite in Virginia, for example, in the colony, begins to give certain carrots to people of European descent, saying things like, you know, we're going to let you own a little land, not much, but just a little. And we're going to get rid of indentured servitude. Now you're free labor. And by the way, once you're free labor, you get 50 acres of land just because you're free labor, see. So we're going to cut you in on this deal. We're going to let you enter into contracts. We're going to let you testify in court. And here's the best of all, we're going to put you on the slave patrol to keep those people in line, right? The idea was you're still going to get your clock clean. We still don't like you. We still aren't going to really empower you or change your economic subordination, but we're going to make you honorary members of this team, and you're going to help us keep those other people down. And so they got a little taste of power, and it did effectively divide and conquer those coalitions. Those rebellions began to stop almost instantly.
So to wrap this up, all these clips show how it is intentional how they want us to acquire material instead of building assets. Causes us to remain consumers for the rest of our time being the people that are in the lower classes, mid to the lower classes, it causes us to remain consumers, and the higher classes remain the people who put it out there, you know? And the last point is what I want this film to accomplish. So what I want this film to accomplish is I want everybody that watches this to become aware of like the cloud that's being put over us, to not see that this is really something that's going on today, and that they're keeping it secret on how to do these things, and making it like a manipulation so that we can't do it. But I want everybody to like I said, be aware and further research and further figure out how to build assets and just do it. Like, just do it. And that's basically it for my video.